This is Scoop with Coop. I'm your host, Coop, and I'm back and I'm better than ever, baby. 2024 free agency signings. You don't want to miss what I have to say, okay? Before the draft, did your favorite teams win free agency? And what moves did they make to change the trajectory of their 2024-2025 season? And also, have you ever heard of the Ant-Man? Anthony Edwards. You just performed one of the biggest and major dunks I have ever seen in my life. Man, drop my music. They're not moving me.
This is Scoop with Coop. This is Scoop with Coop.
Ooh.
This is Scoop with Coop. This is Scoop with Coop. Yeah. This is Scoop with Coop. This is Scoop with Coop.
Ooh.
Back and I'm better than ever. Back and I'm better than ever. Yeah.
They're not moving me. They're not moving me.
No. It's about to get real juicy.
This is Scoop with Coop. I'm your host, Coop. And like I said, the 2024 offseason period has been real juicy. Some of your favorite teams have made moves that'll change their entire season. There have been a lot of departures and there's been a lot of additions. But today on the Scoop, we're going to focus on the top 5 free agency winners. Okay? Now, there's been a lot of movement. You know, I got to start 5-1. So number 5 in the free agency winnings would be, let's go ahead and start with the New York Jets. Okay, we saw last year they kind of had a disappointing season with A-Rod going down week 1. But this year, I think the lights are going to be a little bit brighter in the Big Apple because you have A-Rod coming back. You still have Sauce Gardner. And let's talk about the additions. Okay, some of the key additions they brought in. They brought in Tyron Smith. They brought in Mike Williams. And they also brought in Javon Kinlaw. Now, some of their problems on the edge have been fixed with Tyron Smith. My only problem with bringing in Tyron Smith, 1, Tyron Smith is not getting any younger. 2, we have to worry about Tyron Smith being healthy to even play for the Jets. But overall, looking at the signing, getting Tyron Smith to protect Aaron Rodgers, that's a match made in heaven. Mike Williams. I look at this as the same situation. The potential for Mike Williams' career is up here. What we received from Mike Williams the past, I'll probably say 1 or 2 years, has been straight injuries. Now, the best availability in any sport that you play, matter of fact, in any job that anybody ever does, you have to be available to perform in order to produce, okay? So if Mike Williams is not available to produce, then it's going to be a waste. But on paper, in the offseason, the signing of Mike Williams to go along with Garrett Wilson and to go along with Breece Hall, oh my goodness. Lastly, I brought up the addition of Javon Kinlaw. Okay, Quentin Williams was the only one on the interior of the Jets who was consistently dominant. And the numbers don't always show that for Quentin Williams, but the attention he gets through the physicality he plays with and the dominance he brings on the interior for New York Jets is seen across the league. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the league, and adding Javon Kinlaw to go along with him is a great addition for the Jets. I had the Jets at 5. Number 4, I want to talk about the Chicago Bears. And I know what a lot of y'all are thinking. The first thing you think of right now when you think of the Chicago Bears is, man, I ain't gonna lie, they scrubbed Justin Fields.
Why?
That's what you're gonna say.
Why?
But you gotta think, if you're in a position, you're fighting for your job, it can't be a what if Justin Fields performs when we put these weapons around him. When you're fighting for your job, you have to get something. You have to bring in a product that is more not consistent, but the generational prospect in which Caleb Williams is. We compare this guy to Patrick Mahomes. If you compare a guy to Patrick Mahomes and you have the ability to bring in a guy with arm talent the way he has and also escapability the way that Caleb Williams has, along with the craftiness that he presents, I can't even be mad that they're not passing up on this opportunity. Okay, number 1 pick in the draft, we expect them to get Caleb Williams. But let's talk about what they're bringing in around Caleb Williams. They brought in Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has been one of the best receivers in the league for the past 10 years. He has been one of the crispiest route runners. He has had some of the surest hands. And coming off one of his better seasons in Los Angeles, they didn't want to pay the man. So you know what they did? They traded him for a bag of chips. And they didn't trade him for a bag of Rap Snacks or a bag of chips with flavor. They traded him for the old classics, baby. They got Keenan Allen for nothing. They didn't pay anything to get Keenan Allen to go along with DJ Moore. They have 2 number 1 caliber receivers in Chicago, along with Cole Kmet. And now let's talk about the additions. In the run game for Chicago, they brought in DeAndre Swift. Now, if you were following the Philadelphia Eagles last year, the explosiveness that DeAndre Swift presented in his 1 year, I guess you would say, coming out party for Philly was really amazing to watch. We're going to talk about Philly soon, but they brought in DeAndre Swift. Another addition they brought in Pro Bowler Kevin Byard, All-Pro Kevin Byard. Now, is he going to be an All-Pro kind of player, a Pro Bowl caliber player going forward? Probably not, because he didn't have the greatest season last year when he was traded to the Eagles. But adding Kevin Byard to your defensive back room with his veteran presence, with his ability to still make plays on a team that's trying to trend upward from what they've been, Kevin Byard is a great addition. And now let's talk about, lastly, Gerald Everett to fill in your depth at the tight end position. Gerald Everett, over the past few years, he's had some games where he went crazy. And if you're out there in the fantasy world, I'm almost 100% sure you know who Gerald Everett is from the Chargers. And the Bears come in at number 4 on my list of best free agency signings. Number three, you don't got to like them, but you going to respect it. The Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes. We talked about him not having any receivers last year. We were like, okay, he has Travis Kelce.
Ooh.
He has Rashee Rice. He's a rookie. He's not all that. Until the end of the year, you saw him come around, and we saw how much of a playmaker Rashee Rice was.
Yeah.
Now, what they did was they added Hollywood Brown. Marquise Hollywood Brown. Bringing in Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown is still a very young player with potential to be one of the better receivers in this league. Hollywood Brown is not a star, but I believe he has stardom potential. Thinking about what he came in with, he came into the league into a power run offense, being in Baltimore, and that's not to shame Lamar Jackson as a quarterback. It's just the offense that they have in Baltimore is built solely around the run game. So people like receivers in Baltimore, they're really not the featured option on the field. Then he goes to the Cardinals with his buddy Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray goes down with injury. So it's like where in there is Hollywood Brown able to turn the corner for the outlook of his career? And it's right now. he has something to prove, and he said that by signing a 1-year prove-it deal to go win a ring with Patrick Mahomes. One of the biggest signings of the offseason, in my opinion. Now, to go along with that, what we need to understand is they were able to win. They were able to retain Chris Jones. They also were able to retain the rights of L'Jarius Sneed. Whether they're to trade him or not later on this offseason is to be determined. But to be able to keep that man in the building right now, to go along with McDuffie and everything else you have, is a huge part of Kansas City's mold. They're coming in at number 3. At number 2, go ahead, throw up your H, fool. The Houston Texans. The Houston Texans come in at number 2 for my free agency signings in the 2024 period. Why? Let me tell you why. They lost Jonathan Grenard in free agency, and it was, granted, I respect Jonathan Grenard because being a 26-year-old in the league, it's time for you to go out there and get your check. You got to get paid, bro. At the end of the day, it's a business. Jonathan Grenard, we wish you the best. That was a huge loss. But now let's talk about what we add. The best free agent pass rusher on the market is a Houston Texan. And I'm talking about Danielle Hunter, baby. Danielle Hunter, a Katy native. And he decided to come back home to Houston to play for his hometown team. Next, looking at our running back situation last year, it was amazing to have Devin Singletary. It was amazing to see the production that he was able to do as the second back on the depth chart starting the season, because we didn't see Dameon Pierce come back in his sophomore season like we all expected. But now with Devin Singletary moving on in his career to another franchise, we brought in Joe Mixon. Now let me talk about Joe Mixon. Understand that this is the same Joe Mixon, the same Pro Bowl Joe Mixon that helped his Bengals team go to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Let's not get that confused, okay? So having a quarterback in their second year with a reliable safety blanket to dump it down to that can still be explosive and make plays with the ball in his hand is a huge deal for the Houston Texans organization and the Houston Texans offense. Next, the Houston Texans retain Dalton Schultz. Now, going into this offseason, I think a lot of people weren't giving Dalton Schultz his flowers and what he really needed, because I don't think they really understand what Dalton Schultz brought to the Houston Texans team, because we were all content with, oh, we have Brevin Jordan. Did you see him in the playoffs? As much as I love Brevin Jordan, it's never going to be a bad thing to have a guy like Brevin Jordan to be your second best tight end on the team, especially when he can still play a huge role in your offense with, 1, his verticality at the position, and 2, his potential in time to even get better learning behind a Dalton Schultz. Okay, Dalton Schultz was huge to bring back. Next, Azeez Al-Shaair from the Titans, that linebacker. To have a guy like Christian Harris, who we saw with D'Amico Ryans this year, we saw some flashes of stardom. Being a young linebacker, I believe being coached by a guy like D'Amico Ryans, who played for the Texans, is huge. But at the end of the season, we saw how much he grew as a player through his playmaking, and we saw him make a lot more plays at the line of scrimmage and in zone coverage. Now to have Azeez at linebacker with him, a guy that can run sideline to sideline just as fast as Christian Harris, is huge. You don't have to only deal with one linebacker who's super athletic. You have to deal with 2. And he's also from the D'Amico Ryans tree, as he used to play with the 49ers. Okay? Danico Autry, great depth signing. Also, there's a lot of other honorable mention we signed, like Jeff Okudah. Just signed C.J. Henderson. There's a lot of guys, Derek Barnett, A lot of guys we're looking at who can add to the depth of the Houston Texans. They're my second team. But number one, the number one team in this free agency signing period has been the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate them and I hate their guts. You know why? Because they already were stacked. You already was stacked. I don't understand how in the world you can pull a rabbit out of a hat and be able to bring in guys like you did. And these aren't just any guys. These are top tier guys in the National Football League. Let's go ahead and start and kick it off with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is one of the more premier running backs in the NFL today. He's been over the past few years, and to be able to pair Saquon Barkley in the backfield with Jalen Hurts in that backfield, that read option, the run game, and the ability to just punish other teams is super dangerous. And don't you ever forget the receiving ability of Saquon Barkley. We saw a lot last year. DeAndre Swift, he wasn't able to be on the field for all the third downs. Kenneth Gainwell was a third down back. Kenneth Gainwell may very well still be the third down back, but you have a guy like Saquon Barkley in a crunch time, in a big situation. Saquon Barkley will be on the field on third down because he is a threat in the pass game. Next, I couldn't believe it. You know I'm a Saints fan. So they brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Now they didn't bring him back last offseason. I couldn't wrap my head around it. He ended up going to Detroit. We saw the swag that Detroit had last year. And I'll go out on a limb and I say C.J. Gardner-Johnson had a lot to do with that. Now that he's back in Philly, I believe that swagger on the defensive side of the ball will be back. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, top tier safety in the NFL. Next, let's talk about Devin White, another guy with Super Bowl pedigree. Devin White, still one of the top linebackers in the league. Still one of those linebackers who's nice in coverage. Still one of those linebackers whose intelligence on the field is insane. And he also can run sideline to sideline with the best of anybody in the league. How were you able to bring in those three guys when you already have all these other stars and superstars on your roster? I just don't really understand. But not only did they do that, they brought back Brandon Graham.
Ooh.
And yes, you lost Fletcher Cox to retirement, but you still have Jalen Carter.
Ooh.
You still have Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
You still have guys like Josh Sweat who are still on the Eagles. And you're still talking with guys like Hassan Reddick. I just don't understand how you were able to do the things you do. And we already know you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So you brought in a vet guy to fill the void like Devontae Parker. I don't like the Eagles. I won't like them all year. I love you, Jalen Hurts, but I can't root for you this year, bro. That's my top 5 teams. Coming in at number 1, I had the Eagles. Coming in at 2, I had the Texans. 3, the Chiefs. 4, the Bears. And 5, I had them boys in New York. I had the Jets. Okay? That's all I want to talk about in the NFL. You know it's off-season NFL, but I have to get into the NBA season. Now, it would be beautiful for me to talk about the East and teams fighting to be in the play-in, but when it's not very competitive at 9, 10, and 7 and 8 in the East, there's not really much to talk about with the East being so top-heavy. So today what I want to focus on is the West. The Western Conference play-in is looking really scary. In the past 10 games, the Rockets, who are sitting at number 11 in the West, which is one spot out of the play-in. The last 10 games, they are 9-1. Let me say that again. The Houston Rockets are 9-1 in their last 10 games. And not only are they 9-1, they just lost Alperen Sengun to injury. And they're still playing like they have everything in the world to play for. These young guys are hungry and they're fighting for that play-in spot. Going at a team like the Golden State Warriors, who are 5-5 in their last 10 games, and they are 1.5 games back from that 10th spot. So as much as I hate the Warriors being a Rockets fan, this is the one time I am going to really root on their downfall. I need them to fall off because I want the Rockets to have an opportunity to play for that play-in spot. I think it'll be one, good for the confidence of the young guys, like Jalen Green, who we see he's turning the page this season. We all knew Jalen Green had the potential to be the star he is. He had the potential to be a superstar. And coming off this past week where he was named the Western Conference Player of the Week, I think this season he's turning that corner. And all of us as Houston Rockets fans, all we can do is pray that he can carry this momentum through the end of the season into next season when people have to deal with him and Alperen Sengun. I think we all are looking forward to them getting Tari Eason back as well, as the trajectory of the team with Fred VanVleet being a leader and Dylan Brooks, we see his vocal leadership and his on-court leadership. I think the sky's the limit for that team, and I want to give a huge shout-out to Ime Udoka. Another team in the West that we all look at is the Lakers. Now, the Lakers right now, they're the number 9 team, so they are currently in a spot to be in a play-in, and I would only assume they would be in a play-in at the end of the season. The Lakers have had problems with injuries this entire year. You haven't had Gabe Vincent all year. You haven't had Cam Reddish in the lineup the entire season. He's been in and out the lineup with injuries. Christian Wood just left the Lakers with injury, and he's having to have surgery. So where is the consistency coming in with the rotations that Darvin Ham is putting on the floor? I already questioned Darvin Ham. I kind of look at Darvin Ham how I looked at Doc Rivers about a year or two ago when he was coaching Philly. The only thing about Philly was so nice in the East throughout the regular season where we had to respect Doc and his coaching ability, and we also had to respect Doc and his previous coaching history. But in the playoffs, when you continuously get in positions to get over the hump and you fall short due to me thinking, I don't think you were making the proper adjustments that should have been made. But also all the blame doesn't go on him in Philly, okay? Some of the players, you do have to show up and play, especially in closeout performances. But I kind of look at Darvin Ham in that light as far as like making adjustments and putting the right group of guys on the floor, because sometimes the Lakers just seem kind of discombobulated. And I think that's been a problem throughout the season. And through some of his press conferences, I have a homeboy. He actually sends me Laker press conferences with Darvin Ham. And just the confidence he has in his team at this point in the season, it's not really moving me. Looking at the top of the West, you have young teams like the Thunder, and you have a young superstar on the Timberwolves named Anthony Edwards. And both of those two teams, we playing bottom half teams in the West. The thing about the bottom half teams in the West going into this playoffs is the Thunder are currently at number 1 in the West. They're fighting with the Nuggets for the number 1 spot. That might change at the end of the season. But if the Thunder end up getting the number 1 seed and have to play a team, let's say they play the Lakers or the Warriors in round 1, you don't want to see nobody like that. You don't want to see teams like that. So the playoffs this year, I'll say in the West, I say we have a lot to look forward to from bottom to top, because this year the number 1 seed is not going to have a cakewalk going into the first round. I mean, going into the early parts of the playoffs. Now I want to talk about the Timberwolves. That's my focus of the day because Anthony Edwards is a straight dog. Karl Anthony Towns went down, but the way Anthony Edwards has stepped up in his disappearance has been major. He's averaging over 30 points since Karl Anthony Towns went down, and Rudy Gobert has also stepped up some nights in his defense and his offensive performances. We see games where Rudy Gobert has put up 25, 23, 20 plus, and this guy averages about 12 and a half points. We all know about the defensive impact he brings on the court, but if Rudy Gobert is able to bring offensive presence to the Minnesota Timberwolves to go along with Anthony Edwards, while also having a guy like Naz Reid who has nights he's putting up 20 plus, 25 plus, the Minnesota Timberwolves are super dangerous. But talking about dangerous, did y'all see Anthony Edwards dunk the other night? Anthony Edwards, I'm talking about he was fed a pass from near the free throw line. Anthony Edwards didn't take a dribble. He didn't really take any steps. But he did fly. He flew from the catch of the pass and he flushed it on John Collins. He even dislocated his finger in doing so. And John Collins ended up having a significant head injury that caused him to be questionable for the next game. Now, I'm going to ask y'all, where does that Anthony Edwards dunk rank among dunks of all time? I know we have great in-game dunkers, people like Vinsanity, Vince Carter. Yeah, people like Sean Kemp. People like Blake Griffin. And Dominique Wilkins, Mike Jordan, only to name a few people that have been great in-game dunkers. But where would you personally rank that Anthony Edwards dunk? Because me, I gotta put it at least at the very minimum. If that dunk is not in your top 10, then I don't know. I don't understand what you've seen that maybe I haven't. Send it to me, DM it to me, educate me. But Anthony Edwards' dunk is at the very minimum in my top 10. Make sure y'all tune in, comment your top dunks of all time below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. This is a Scoop with Coop, and I'll see y'all next week for another episode of sports content. They're not moving me.
This is Scoop with Coop. 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 Yeah. This is Scoop with Coop. This is Scoop with Coop. Backing them better than ever. Backing them better than ever. Yeah. They're not moving me. They're not moving me. No. It's about to get real juicy.